to our godliness. May our left hand give us strength to face each day. And before us may our vision light our path ahead. And behind us may well-being heal our way. All around us is Shekhinah. All around us is Shekhinah. May our right hand bring us closer to our godliness. May our left hand give us strength to face each day. And before us may our vision light our path ahead. And behind us may well-being heal our way. All around us is Shekhinah. All around us is Shekhinah. All around us is Shekhinah. Shekhinah.
Good afternoon and welcome, and thank you so much for being here as we undertake the hard task of saying goodbye to Irving Martin Rozansky, knowing that we have an honor and a privilege and a responsibility today to say goodbye to him, but also to lift up his memory and to begin the process of turning the relationship that we have had with him into a real and beautiful and powerful relationship with his memory and lifting up the pieces of him that are so important to us. I'm Rabbi Emily Hyatt, Steve Brodsky, and we're really honored to be here with you to remember Irv. There's essentially three parts of a Jewish funeral. The first thing that we do is prepare ourselves for the hard work of saying goodbye, and we do that using the psalms and songs and poems of our tradition. The second thing that we do is start to tell the story of a life, and it's a pretty incredible story that I began to learn last night about Irv and about his life. And then the last thing that we're going to do is say goodbye, begin the process of saying goodbye to Irv's physical presence here on earth. We will begin that with the recitation of our memorial prayers, and it will continue and be concluded on Thursday, hopefully, when Irving is laid to rest with his family in New Jersey. And so we begin with a poem called Birth is a Beginning. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness and loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude and pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. And we turn now to the words of Psalm 23, a psalm that is such a part of this ritual in so many different faith traditions. And we hear that famous line that we know from moments like these, but also from cultural references, because it feels like it belongs in this space. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. And there's so many different ways to understand these words and to let them live with us. And yet I know that there is also such power in knowing that I believe that, right, Irv and his memory and you and your memories of him make you very much not alone, even though this moment might feel lonely. And so we lift up these words.
Adonai roi lo echsar, bino deshe yarbitzeni, al me menuchot, yinahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, yeshovev, yancheni v'magle tzedek, yancheni v'magle tzedek, v'man shemo. Gam ki elech beget salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema Yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai, shulchan neged tzorirai, dishanta vashem en roshi, kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, kol yemei chayai, v'shavti bevet Adonai leorech Yamim. Adonai roi lo echsar. Adonai roi lo echsar.
Psalm 23. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. God, you lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. And even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Yesterday, when I had the opportunity to really begin to learn about Irv and his life, we talked about him for a long time. And then one of the last things that was said about him was that he would do anything for anyone without even a thought. And there had been examples of that sprinkled into our whole conversation. But that's really a statement to be able to make about a person, that he would do anything without really thinking about it, right? Without worrying about what a burden it would be for him or what kind of time it would take or what it meant for him, that he was there for the people he loved. And so I want to share this poem with you. It's called Give Me Away. It's by Merritt Malloy. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and loved ones and old men who wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your neighbor walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. So look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands, by letting souls touch souls, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Remember, love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. And with those words in our hearts, we take just a moment for silent prayer.
Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon Lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon Lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה ישלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
And so we turn now to the story of Irv's life. And it is my honor to ask David to come up and share some of those words with us.
I think so. I'll find out. Well, those of you who don't know me, and I don't see anyone who may not, but I'm David Rozansky. I am the eldest son of Irving Rozansky. And to make it official, that is my sad and honorable responsibility to let you know that Irving Martin Rozansky has passed from this world. Now, they tell you to write a eulogy for your father. Well, the only one who told me that was me. Because I've written eulogies, I've written obituaries, I'm a writer. I thought it would be easy. I've always done this as a mitzvah for others who found it hard. I thought it would be easy to do it, so I offered. I realize now that there's a reason it seems like a mitzvah, because it is very hard. And then I realized it's not really a mitzvah, because there's a process of writing a eulogy. I take all of these thoughts in my head, all of these memories, and I try to distill it down to one idea. What did I learn? What did he mean? Who was he? I'm here to tell the story of my father. And I want to thank Carolyn and Steve, cousins over here, for helping me figure this out. I'm trying to figure out what I should say in a eulogy. And what you say, but I'm here to tell the story of my father. And it's rather easy, because his story, you are it. My father did not live for glory. He did not live for wealth. He did not live for a bronze medal or any kind of statue in a yard. He lived for friends. He lived for the people he passed in the street. He lived a path. I told a speech at my brother's wedding about a path, about how a wedding is a path you take. It's a life. You stand on this path and look upon how great a path it is. And you stand with the couple to say, this is the moment. We don't celebrate their love. They've always loved each other. We don't celebrate them getting together. They've been together for a long time. But we celebrate the path to look upon it. And today we look at another part of a path that we feel has come to an end. And we look back and we look at memories. But it's not the memories, it's not the path we've come to celebrate or to remember, it's the intersections. Everyone here has their own path, and that path has crossed my father's path. We all know my father in a different way, and yet my father always stopped at those intersections and looked both ways. And he helped us along every stop along the way. If his path went along and someone stumbled, he stopped to pick him up. He took not one step farther until he picked that person up. My father lived a life of tzedakah. In my life, there's no greater motivation than what my father left me, to simply do what's right, do what's kind, put the service of others before the service of self. So the question is who was my dad? And I look upon his path and I say, well, it starts in Brooklyn. He's a Brooklyn Jew. He was a Reformed Jew in an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. So he's always a little different, and yet always very much had Judaism at heart. He was in the Army. He was a first lieutenant with the Army Corps of Engineers. stationed in Germany during a very difficult time in the world. Missiles were ready to fly. Walls went up. My father was on the line. And all my father ever thought about were the people around him. He came back and he ended up working for AT&T. He was an engineer. And in the Army, they taught him radios. So he went to AT&T and said, I know radios. I can work on your telephones. And they said, well, that's great, but we don't need radios. We need computers. And he said, what's computers? And boy, did they teach him. He was on the bleeding edge of what we now call the internet. He helped build it. I guess he made the tubes. But he always loved computers. That work brought him to Denver, where he raised a family. When AT&T couldn't last, they moved him to New Jersey with the breakup, and he worked there on computers. And when he retired there, well, in that process of getting to that point in his life, he met Sonia and raised a second family because raising teenagers is so much fun. Let's do it again. And he loved that family as much as he loved this family, to the point where we are now one family. And family is an interesting thing for my father. You know, I kind of came up with the phrase last night, but I think my father taught it to me, is that you must be kind to family, because family is family, and we are all family. When Sonia died, grief hit my father very hard, very hard. He could not let go. And so we brought him here to Denver so he could be with family, have someone watching over him. Parkinson's disease slowly, ever so slowly, took him. When his memory started to go, there were times he didn't even remember who I was. That hurt. But as time went on, I realized we were very fortunate, because though it took his memories and even bits of his life, it didn't take his personality. Irving was still there. The lesson was always there. We are all family. So no matter how strange you are standing in front of him, I was still his son. And he still cared. I've seen memory loss in many people. For some people, it takes them, and they become very different. My father is fortunate that he stayed who he was to the very end. That is a blessing. So I look at his illness and I think, oh, I lost him. And I realize he never left me. Now I realize he still hasn't left. I look out and I realize my father, excuse me, my father sprinkled parts of him wherever he went. He never left a place without leaving his love and leaving us with an impression of what the world needed to be. That was his true grace. So I get that nice explanation of what Dad's life was. Places, people, things. That's not what Dad was. So I'm going to ask again. Who was Dad? What was he interested in? I come with all sorts of things. We talked about computers. We worked on them. I mean, I'm live streaming this event to the world. My father had trouble making a long distance call because of how much money it would cost when I was young. My father helped make live stream possible. He would be absolutely tickled by today. The fact that I can look out this room, and this room extends from here to Asia and Australia and back again. This is just fantastic. He loved trains, model trains, pictures of trains, train company logos. There is a room at the care facility where he got the room. No one ever wanted this room because it's in the corner and it stares out at the train track and a brick wall. Except my father loved it. The trains would go by, the high-speed train, the freight trains, the coal train. You know how we all love that coal train. My father loved that coal train. My father, that coal train came by when my father died, carried him away. And there's no finer chariot that I can think of for my father. My father loved chess. He competed in chess. He taught me chess. Every spare moment that we had that we could have been together, I could have gone out and we could have played baseball, thrown a ball around. No, let's play chess. And he beat me every single time. He had no mercy when it came to chess. I beat him once. It was last September. It was the last moment I spent with him. I cannot think of a finer way to say goodbye to my father. Checkmate. And all I could do, because of the state of his memory, was to teach him how to play chess the way he taught me. Do you really want to make that move? Perhaps you can make a better move. Think about it. That's the way it works. You pass on to the next generation the lessons. And of course, since he liked chess, he liked logic puzzles. There were always a logic puzzle hanging around. He liked baseball scorebooks. You would go to a baseball game, and the best part was keeping track of who hit what, when, where, and how. Little diagrams on it. Scorebook. He did scorebooks for my little league, for my high school baseball, for the Denver Bears. He loved the Denver Bears. That's one of the things. And I got here at the bottom of the list, neighbors and friends. As much as a hobby as he could have, that was it. He wanted to spend time with neighbors and friends. If you were able to talk, I mean, anyone who's talked with him knows he was a quiet person. He wouldn't corner you. Yet somehow you just could not get away from his conversation. So he truly loved all of us, but he truly loved even people he didn't know. So that's just interest. Still not quite who my dad is. I finally said, who is dad really? And I look at that and I said, he made friends. He was a friend to everybody. He was, Carolyn and Steve, again, we were talking last night, and they told me that at their wedding, everybody gave gifts. Crystal this, china that. We all have those gifts sitting in a closet, or maybe we don't even know where they are. When my father asked them, well, what do you need? And they said, well, you know, we got all these books. They're famous for these books everywhere in their house. They said, we need a book. You know, we could really use a bookcase. My father got a bookcase that still stands today. What's it been? 40 years. It wasn't just something you pick up at the, you know, at IKEA. It was a solid bookcase. And it was what they needed, and it was what they had been using. And that was my father's thoughtfulness. And he did it without thinking twice. It was just what you did. And never mind that it's not a traditional gift. It is the right gift. And it's the only gift I think he ever gave, was the right gift. He never gleaned his corners. That's an important lesson in Judaism. My father, if somebody needed something, he made sure they got it. If someone was hungry, he fed them. Like I said, he always gave charity, tzedakah. I guess his latest is the American Humane Society. I know it extended to animals. But there was always something he was giving money to. I was a volunteer for Wings of Hope, and I haven't worked there for a long time. My father gave every year without telling me. Quite the surprise to me. I found out because my father had a newsletter from this organization that I had worked for years and years ago. And that was just the kind of thing my father always did. And patience. And the story I have here is learning to drive. My father taught me to drive, which is a horrendous, as a parent, I have taught my daughter to drive. There's nothing more nerve-wracking. Absolutely nothing. My father had so much patience. We just kept driving. And he did that with everything. No matter how frustrating an event could be, he seemed to always have patience for it. Dad was so kind. But he did once have a very harsh word for me. I know he's used this harsh word with my brother. This is the harsh word. He called me up. And that was it. That is the harshest thing my father ever did to me. And boy, it cut to the bone. You disappointed him. You knew you had done something wrong. And you just took it upon yourself to do it right. And that is simply the only judgment I ever really had for my father. Everything else was pride and joy in what everybody did around him. What he couldn't stand was corporate buffoonery. Corporations are soulless beasts. And when the system breaks down and red tape starts taking over, that's when he would get furious. And he would lose his temper and he would just start lashing out in ways that you could tell he wasn't thinking what he was thinking through. He would just, and the example I gave is when we first used a Sears credit card, pieces of plastic, brand new credit card. We went to Sears to buy some paint, can of paint, white paint, so it's off the shelf. And he pulls out the credit card and they're happy to see him and he's happy to use it. They're making this big, huge deal. And the cashier turns down the card. I said, what's wrong? Look at him, he said, Irving Rozansky's reported as dead. And my father blew up. Wasn't ever going to go back to Sears again. That cashier was sorts of names and poor kid. And absolutely furious. And he did that, you see me wearing a bolo tie. My brothers are wearing a polo tie. That is because AT&T forced my father, the engineer who worked behind a desk, to wear a tie. So he said, fine, I'll wear a bolo tie. Cute, funny way of sticking it to the man. He stuck it to the man all the way to the end of his life. A lot of bolo ties. My father has outlived Sears. My father has outlived AT&T. So, good for you, Dad. My dad was also big in synagogue. Not because of Judaism, but because of, I guess we call it brotherhood. He believed in the people. Alan keeps telling the story, my brother Alan. He wanted to be an usher. My father was a treasurer at the synagogue, at the congregation in New Jersey. He was in the brotherhood here in Temple Emmanuel. But mostly he was an usher because he could be outside the service rather than being in it. To my father, synagogue was about the people who came and the people who needed to worship. It wasn't about the worship itself. It was about the friends and family and neighbors, as it always was with him. So that's the kind of thing I have. I have some special memories. I remember when my father was hit by a car on a February day when it was, this is a nice warm February day. This is one of those days, it was like 14 degrees or something. The streets were coated in ice. We were at a curve in the road where all the cars were losing traction, going, couldn't brake, couldn't turn. It was a pile up. We ran into that pile. We got out of the car. My father was going out to help other people. Another car started coming. My father pushed a car out of the way to protect the person in it when he got hit. He goes flying over the hood, hits the ground. Our first concern is, oh my God, let's call the ambulance. Let's, is everyone okay? My father gets up, limping badly, bleeding, goes to the driver of that car that just hit him and says, are you okay? That's service before himself. He was always concerned more about the other person than about himself. I remember chess games. I've already given that story, so I won't repeat it. I remember train clubs, going to the train clubs where he had all, him and all his friends had this huge apartment they have rented. There's other places. Michael tells a story in New Jersey. He did the same thing. They have big, huge layouts. He loved these trains. I remember the laser printer at AT&T. Laser printer was the size of half this room. And the big thing about it is that you could use it to print any font possible. Back then it was all dot matrix. And it would bind the book for you and spit out a book. I like the fact that it was print on demand. This was 1973. AT&T went forward and did the laser printer, and that's where they made their money, selling that particular patent. My father was always fascinated that you could push a button and a book would come out. And that led me through becoming a print-on-demand printer and publisher, and so his work impacted me. So that's just the kind of memories I have. Sorry, I've given point to this, and I don't want to repeat because I've been told not to make this too long. So I guess I will close on some advice for all of you that I can pass on that I've had from years of grief, just watching other people in grief, being around it, but now I'm in it. Grief, it's a combination of a couple of things. It's love. Love is a force that cannot bend. It does not let anything stand in the way. That is what makes it love. The people we love are the people we want to be with no matter what. When given the choice between a fantastic dessert or 2 minutes with a person we love, we will pick the person we love. Nothing stands in the way. On the other hand is loss, and particularly death. And it comes at us as this unstoppable force. We cannot stand against it. It stands in the way of everything. And it is what scares us. It's what makes us hurt and what makes us cry. And the mind and the heart have to deal at a certain point with fabulous amounts of love. And the final loss that we cannot undo in any circumstance. And there is no room in the mind or in the heart to put these two together, these two realities. And so this frustration we have of trying to make it fit is called grief. And the more it leaves a hole, and the more we try and dig out of this hole, the deeper the hole gets. Don't try to dig yourselves out. Rather, take this collision of this love and this loss and realize that what it does is it spreads love all over the world. My father is not gone. He's within each of us. Turn to each other to find him. And if you're feeling hurt, turn to each other and spread that love, and spread that love wherever you go, and it will fill as many other holes as you can find, and your own hole will be filled. Grief takes time, to heal, but you have to let it heal. I ask you not be like Irving, that you hold on to it so tight that you cannot let it go. Please, he would not want that. He would want all of us to take what he's taught us and move forward. So I'm going to close this out with the idea of the path again. Dad's path crossed. We are renewing the world that he has left us. He left the world a better place than he found it. He leaves us with the ability to take what he gave us to make it even better, as each generation does. So we come to the end of this path, we look back, we see that this is a good path. It has been a good path, and our paths now cross at this one point and spread out from here to carry it forward. This path is called life. We are grateful for it. To life, l'chaim, is what my father always said. It was his greatest wish that all of us live our lives. So please go forward with him in your heart and love the people who need the love. Thank you very much for coming. I will mention that at the back of the room, I managed to bring Girl Scout cookies because my father would never pass up Girl Scouts. So, certainly welcome to help yourselves there. I want to thank Rabbi Hyatt, Rabbi Brodsky. Is it Rabbi? No, I'm sorry. It's not my intention to get things wrong, but I do appreciate you being here and the beautiful music and the thoughts. I thank you for your time. I know I am a horrible speaker and trying to speak short amounts, but I try to get all of my heart into it. And I want to thank my brothers for being here. I want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you very much.
I was here with my dad. David and his family moved up to Idaho for work, but so I got to spend a lot of time with my dad, especially since after COVID, he got sick, and we spent a lot of time driving to appointments and just sitting and talking things. So I got to ask him a lot of questions. I figured it was a good time to learn about him, and just to add, David talked about the path. I wanted to talk about, not about my dad, but about one person who made the entire difference in his life. And he never knew the person's name. There's a picture up here when he was a little boy. And he grew up in East New York City, and he was good at math. And so one day, somebody walked into his classroom, a woman walked into his classroom, and he thinks she was the head of the math department or something. And she said, "Would you like to take this test?" All the kids who were good at math, we'd like them to take this test. And he said, "Sure." So he went down the hall and he took a test with a couple other kids. And it was a math test, and he did really well. And so after the test, the woman said to him, "Would you like to go to a different school for kids who are good at math and like science?" And he thought that was great. And he went home and he told his parents, Evelyn and Solomon. And my grandfather was thrilled that they were first generation Americans from Russian immigrants, and that he was recognized and he had this opportunity. And my grandmother was extremely sad because the school, he wasn't close to home, so he would have to travel by subway to get there. But he went, and it made all the difference in so many of our lives. If it wasn't for that woman, he wouldn't have gone to the Brooklyn Technical High School, where he learned so much. And if he hadn't been in Brooklyn Technical High School, he wouldn't have gotten into New York Polytechnic Institute. Because he had gone to Brooklyn High School, he walked down the street to New York Polytech, and he met with the dean or whoever it was, the admissions counselor. And then he sat down and I looked at his folder and he said, "Oh, you go to Brooklyn Tech High School?" He said, "Okay, you're enrolled. Come next semester." And that was his entire interview process. No tests, no essays, no application fees. And because he went to to New York Tech, he got into ROTC. Because he was ROTC, he went to Germany. It was the first trip that he and my mom, they got married right after graduation, and off they went to Germany. And because of him, because of that woman, my mom got to see the world. She had never been off the East Coast. And she said that was a wonderful gift he gave her. And because of that woman, they came back and they got a great job at AT&T. David was born. They moved to Denver because of AT&T, and I was born. And because of that woman, they got to meet Harold Goodman and the Goodman family. And because we were here in Denver, the Greenbergs came, we were here to greet them and to spend all that time together, all our holidays. And he played millions of games of chess with Marvin. And whenever we went to their house, first thing the two of them went into the living room, green and white chessboard, and they played chess. And because of that woman, he was able to teach us the importance of learning. We went on. David became an aeronautical engineer. I was the black sheep in the family, went to law school, no engineering for me. But he had his wonderful grandchildren. Because of that woman, he was able to teach us, provide for them. And we met our families, and he was able to go back to New Jersey because of that woman and work for AT&T and meet Sonia. We were telling the rabbi he met Dorothy, our mom, at a Boy Scout, Girl Scout dance. He met Sonia at a Jewish singles dance. So he was apparently a great dancer. But so it's in to follow with what David said, Irving always made a difference in people's lives. And this woman, we don't know who she is. And she just saw something in him, asked him to take a test, and changed so many people's lives. You can see up here, the award that he got when the Platte River flooded way back when, and so many people's lives changed. And he got an award because he was a radio operator. He learned how to operate a radio. He was a ham radio person, and he got involved in the effort to save people and to save their stuff. So just remember, when you come into contact with somebody, you may not think it's a big deal, but think about how you come into contact and the difference that one contact with that person can make. So.
There's a prayer that we often say in Jewish tradition that actually doesn't really fit that well into the idea of a funeral. And when Alan mentioned that it was a favorite of his dad's, Steve and I started thinking about how we might include it in this moment. It's the Misha Berach prayer, which is a prayer for healing. And we don't often say it at funerals because we know how the story of a person for whom we might have wished healing has gone, right? And it's a interesting thing to think about how we fit it in. And then Steve and I realized that actually it's perfect for this moment, because it is not a Misha Berach prayer for healing for your dad, whose story has concluded. It's for you, and for knowing that his loss is tremendous for those of you that are gathered here. And yet what we wish for you in the telling of his story, and in the telling of his story last night, to me, is enormous healing and love that you can take from all of the moments and memories that you have held.
Yishebeira avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Yishebeira imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
With those words in our hearts, we turn now to the final part of our responsibility today as we say goodbye to Irving. And that is that we say our memorial prayers, knowing that now that we have accomplished this task of telling some of the story of Earth's life, that we are ready to move into those prayers. They will be repeated again on Thursday when he is laid to rest. But in this moment, we are ready for our goodbye. And so we rise as we are able for Amale Rachamim.
El male rachamim, shochein bamromim, hamsei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina. Im kedoshim utehorim, kezohar harakia, mazhirim. Et nishmat Yitzchak ben Shlomo, shehalach leolamo. Bal harachamim, yastirehu beseter kenafav leolamim. Veyitzror bitzror hachaim et nishmato. Adonai hu nachalato. Ve'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar Amen.
God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace. together with the holy and pure whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold Irving Rozansky close to you forever so that his soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May he find a home with you and may he rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. And we turn now for the first time to the words of the mourner's Kaddish. These are words of memory that speak not at all about memory, but they are words that lift up what is beautiful about life and about the path that Irv has walked. And so we join in with these words together. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach leolam ulealmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei dekudasha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say together, Amen. And we conclude our service with ancient words of comfort, Hamakom yinechem etchem b'toch sha'ar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim, which means may you be comforted amongst the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And to me, those words always represent the truth that we don't mourn alone. You mourn with community, with people you love, with family. And I'm grateful that there is family gathered around you today in these moments, and I hope you will let them be with you and comfort you in the days to come. Thank you so much for being here today. That concludes our service.